So this was the day after the earthquake, and by this time many search and rescue teams had been through lots of the quake damage, seeking to find survivors and recover those who'd lost their lives. This is Chewham Street. See the word clear there, which was written to show that a search and rescue team had been and cleared the building. News report going on here near the CTV site. This was the first time that we personally saw the PGC building a couple of days after the earthquake.
Dear me. Look at that.
It was quite something to see it. We'd already seen it in the news, but to see it firsthand was just unbelievable. This was a couple of days after when the rescue was turning into recovery, but these search and rescue teams were still obviously seeking to find survivors. And just such an incredible job that they did. So risky being there with the risk of more aftershocks. It's behind the PGC building. Some of the liquefaction coming up from the cracks in the road there. This was everywhere all over the city. Cars just sunk into the liquefaction. And here's the setup at Latimer Square with the medical teams, the army. And there was a news report going on there, as you can see, the reporter. It was just numbing to drive through and see the damage. Just disbelief that this had actually happened, even though we saw it with our own eyes. So much damage in these kind of buildings where there's lots of bricks and the city was cordoned off at this time. Of course, there was no one allowed in apart from emergency services. This was the temporary medical tents that were used on the day of the earthquake as temporary hospitals where people were brought and treated.
Continuing with our coverage and inviting people to call through with your issues in Christchurch as we
Some of the cracks in the road there. Here again is just extensive damage to so many buildings. More of the liquefaction, which was being cleared up into piles. Again, just such incredible amounts of damage to so many buildings. Here's the piles of liquefaction that several days after were gathered up and there for many weeks.
This is the room I was in.
It was.
Standing here, sitting here, and looking out across the city there. And seeing dust.
It's always quite sobering seeing this part. This is the PGC building in the days following, where the search and rescue teams were meticulously going through.
Probably can't see on here, but there's a tiny red light, that chimney, just up from the base of the chimney over to the right there's a tiny red light, and that's the engineer's mark to see if the building moves. So if that light moves, it means the building's moved. The guys are in there at the moment, still searching.
In the hope of finding any survivors, the building was taken apart bit by bit. Again, meticulous operation. Very risky, very necessary. Those men in white suits were on hand to go further into the rubble should anything be found. Some of the damage inside the shops. Pretty minor by comparison, but it still shows the level of shaking that occurred. That's the PGC building in the background.
Doesn't really fit the situation, does it, that line?
It's an understatement. I guess there'll be some people that never saw the extent of the damage because everything was cordoned off. The next thing they heard, the buildings were taken down.
So many alleyways like this, full of rubble.